lady at the pool asked me for my address as a child, and I gave it to her. This is a very spotty memory from my childhood, but I remember enough to still be freaked out every time I think about it. I was very young, probably around the age of 5, and my family and I were at the public pool that day. We went quite often when I was younger. I don't remember how this interaction came about, but I remember talking to a woman who looked relatively young, around 25-30, asking me what my address was. I am not sure why I knew my address, but I remember reciting my home address to this random woman at the pool. In my little kid mind, this was a completely normal conversation, so I had no reason to not tell her. Naturally, I returned the question to her. Her response was 123 Toad Lane. I had no reason at this age, so in my head this was a completely valid address. I don't remember what she said after that, but I remember my parents pulling me away eventually, thank God WTF, and never thinking anything of it until years later. Thankfully, nothing ever came of it, as far as I know, but it's still so weird knowing that some lady I literally had never met was asking a child for their address. I have so many questions about it looking back. Why did she want to know my address? Did she plan to do anything with that information? Was somebody else getting her to ask? Well, I will probably never get an answer to any of those questions. I'm just glad that my naivete as a child didn't cost me any harm. To the lady at the pool who asked for my address, let's not meet ever again. Edit. It was a public pool, pay to access, so no reason for her to ask for my address. Also, there is Northwest Toad Lane anywhere near my hometown. The weirdest teacher I have ever met. My entire primary school experience felt like a fever dream, but I don't think I could fit all in post, so instead, I am choosing to tell the most bizarre experience in my schooling life. In my school, the language sub that I was taking had teachers leaving almost every 3 months. Some due to finding a job with higher wages. This teacher, however, left due to his disturbing attitudes to kids, 8 to 10. This teacher is Mr. John. He came to our school during the second semester of grade 5, my class. He was not only a language teacher but a PE and arts teacher as well, despite not having any experience in either fields. At first, he made a good impression, cracking jokes and giving helpful advice. However, one day, he started deterring to very mature topics while he was teaching. He would talk about paintings but somehow divert the conversation to body odor and what kind of object that would emit such terrible smells such as excrements. He would go too much into detail about excrements, nothing you learn from bio, to the point where it's not funny but disturbing. He later talked about puberty, which at first seems normal, but later talked about how puberty changes you, such as your body parts, and other feelings you get. We were 8. He then showed pictures of his ex-girlfriend when she was 17 to her selfies. She was getting married. He had her photos in a file on his computer. The final blow was him taking off his shirt and showing every scar and injury that was inflicted on him. He forced us to look at all of them. We were so uncomfortable. Finally, I complained to the principal along with a few others. He tried to find those who complained about him. He asked around and interrogated 2 of my friends. To Mr. John, let's not meet. To the campground owner, years ago me, my family, and family friends would go camping at some cabins in Lake Placid, New York. Despite what happened that weekend, that campground holds very fond memories for me that I will cherish forever. The incident happened 4th of July weekend. My family was grilling and me and my friends, children at the time, were running around and playing cops and robbers. While we played, the campground owner came over to my parents and offered to pay for some food. My parents, being nice, gave him food and beer for free. Eventually the owner overstayed his welcome and was asked to leave by my friend's dad. This angered him and he took off his shirt and tried to fight him. We were not aware that he was an alcoholic and already drunk when he asked for food and beer. They eventually got him to leave and he came back, this time with a rifle. As me and my friends played, he walked around drunkenly, tried to load a rifle. One of my friends, being an innocent kid, walked over to him and asked him what he was doing. The owner said, "I'm going to show your dad something." One of the adults saw this and rushed over. My friend's dad took the rifle from his hands and threw it across the parking lot, screaming at him that there are kids around. At this point I knew something bad was happening and I rushed all my friends inside our cabin. At this point my dad called the police and was recording the whole thing. The police eventually came and arrested him for the night while the campground owner tried to claim he never had a rifle while saying on video, "Give me my rifle." The police came back the next morning and let us file a temporary restraining order while we stayed the weekend. While this is an incident my family laughs at from time to time, I can't help but wonder what would have happened if he had gotten that rifle loaded. So to the campground owner, let's not meet. Roommate's cousin, let's not meet ever again. I don't know how long he was in my bed or why he was there. All I know is that he woke me up with a kiss, which I promptly wiped off with my hand. I was fully clothed, which hinted to me nothing had happened, but the buttons on my pants were undone. I don't know if they were undone the whole time, or if he undid them. Under the sheets I could see that my shirt was pushed up so he could put his hands on my waist and hold me close to him. I moved his hands off and he went back to sleep. I sat up in shock, and caught a glimpse of his face. I asked him, "What are you doing?" and he yawned and said, "Resting." I brought out my hands and tightened them into fists. I was ready to defend myself, and at that moment he said, "Okay, I'll leave," and walked out of my room. I was so overcome with horror that I pushed my dresser up to my door to make sure he couldn't come back in. I immediately took a shower and was relieved that nothing worse had happened to me, to my knowledge. After all, I'd gone to bed at 11, and when I found him in my bed it was 5 a.m. I had a weird dream that night too. In that dream I lived in a zoo, and the zookeeper deliberately let every animal out of the cage so they would roam free. One of those animals was a tiger, and when it saw me it immediately started trying to eat me, so I fought back. I was wrestling it. Then I lost, and as the tiger had me pinned down it started licking me, and that was when I woke up to him kissing me. In my drunken stupor, I was fighting him. Edit. Thank you for trying to help me, but this happened last September. There's not much I can do about it now. I felt compelled to post it because I had a nightmare about that night last night, and even though it happened so long ago, I'm still scared he might be out there. I don't want justice at this point, just someone to listen. Why did I think I was assaulted? I'm too ugly and fat to be assaulted. I'm just seeking attention. 2 creepy encounters with the same man. He probably knows where I live. I am a little worried, so I recently moved to an apartment, and there is a grocery store just opposite to the apartment where I shop often. One day I was waiting to cross the road to go to the grocery store when this guy on a bike kept staring at me. He then turned his bike and parked it near the store and kept looking in my direction. I didn't really think much of it and crossed the road, and then my eyes locked with his and he gave a very creepy smile. I don't really know how to describe the smile, but it was pure evil, like a predator looking at a prey, and it certainly did send a chill down my spine. His face and that smile was something that stayed with me for a few days, despite the fact that this was obviously not the first time that a guy looked at me in a creepy way. After a few days I went back to the grocery store, and after shopping I was trying to cross the road when all of a sudden the same guy popped up out of nowhere, and he followed me up to the entrance of my apartment and kept looking at me until I entered the elevator. So now this guy knows where I live, and he probably lives nearby and has his eyes on me. This makes me feel very uncomfortable. I am also worried that he is noting when I leave my home. I have a pretty set routine where I go to for my dance classes on Saturday and Sunday on a set time, and I am kind of worried that he is noting this. At this point he knows where I live, has followed me twice. He is very creepy and looks like he has bad intentions and has actual intention to do harm. Maybe I am overreacting, but I have a very bad feeling about this guy, but he has not really done anything to file a police complaint or anything. I don't really know what to do.